Fill her up.
You're listening to the Gas Digital Network.
Yeah, I know. Because I can't get right. This is cutthroat. This burns as words hot from a snub nose. This Kurt Metzger and not give a fuck mode. Because I can't get right. Because I can't get right. Yeah. You're listening to Can't Get Right.
All right, this Can't Get Right with me, Kurt Metzger, and my old friend Andy Curtin, who I did his China comedy tour, Kung Fu Comedy, which I guess is, if you're American, that's a racist name.
I heard that from a few people, but only in America and only from white people.
No, that the funnest part, like one of the funniest things of China is how much you realize you don't know shit about China based on any Asians you've known in like America or because I bring this up, a lot of people are like, you should probably do more like race jokes. I don't have like a lot of race jokes.
Yeah, it's funny how like sensitive to race people are. Like I came back to Australia and I'm sort of seeing that now. And without judging that, I'm just saying that like they don't have any of that sensitivity over there.
Yeah, well, also in China, they got there's like no chance of you're not becoming Chinese, so like they don't have to deal with the little nuances and shit you would have of like a immigrant society, right? Like they're not. You're an expat. Because that was, by the way, somebody out. If they're white, they're immigrants. They're not an immigrant. Like no,
if they're white, they're expats, and if they're brown, they're immigrants. Yeah. I mean, definitely, I think a difference is that expats tend not to be a permanent move. I don't know if that's an aspect to it, but certainly
you could become a Chinese citizen. Is that?
Maybe like one guy has done it. You know,
what if you got the surgery?
Yeah. On your vagina to make it the other direction.
Yeah, to make it.
What is interesting to me is like people don't realize this, but there are different ethnicities in China, but 93% of Chinese people are the same ethnicity. Like you talk about
Han is the main
Han Chinese, yeah. And
is there a rivalry in that? Which you might have told me when I was there, like with like I'm Han Chinese and somebody else is a different kind of. I mean, what else is there besides Han?
There are officially 56 different ethnic groups in the remaining 7%, and actually they've just clumped them together. There's probably more like hundreds.
No kidding.
Yeah,
that's how we do. Wow.
Some of them, if you met them, they're East Asian, so like you couldn't. It's difficult to visually identify them as not being Han, although some people can, if they have a more prominent look, they're, that group. And then others like the Uyghurs, they are Turkish in their genealogy, so they don't look Chinese at all. And it's weird because you can meet people and you're like, well, that's a Chinese guy. And he's like full on, he looks like an Eastern European.
Well, yeah, wasn't your wife like Russian, but like looks Asian? I thought it was Asian until you told me she was Russian. But you told me that
she's Asian. She's half. So her dad was her parents were born in the USSR, right? But her dad was born in what is now Uzbekistan, and he's ethnically Korean. And her mom is from Kyrgyzstan, which was USSR. Right. So there, she's like, the mom is like Central Asian, and the dad is like ethnically East Asian.
No, that's all those kind of countries where it like goes from Genghis Khan to like there's like a whole link of
stands.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a bunch of Russians that are very Asian looking, like that are not. That's right. You told me that. Would you say like? Didn't you say your wife's dad was some kind of veteran from North Korea? They ended up there, or some crazy thing like.
Well, the story is that Uzbekistan, which is quite central, has massive Korean populations because during the First World War there was only one Korea. There was no North and South Korea. There was just Korea, and it was controlled by the Japanese. So Stalin was kind of afraid of the Koreans around the border because he thought they would fight for the Japanese. Mm. So he just picked them all up and put them on trains and shipped them off into.
Yeah, that's why I didn't even know that.
So there's like all these weird cuisines that's like Korean cuisine out of Uzbekistan, like dishes that come out of there. It's really interesting. But yeah, it's a total. If you've been to that region, it's obvious. But People are still shocked, when they find out there are Asians from Russia. But like the whole east of Russia, the whatever local people are Asian there.
Yeah, Turner told me he was talking about doing comedy, speaking Mandarin, doing stand-up when he got back to the States.
Yeah.
And his wife's Chinese, I think, right?
That's right. Yeah, she's from Suzhou.
Yeah, and so two of these hipsters went to started complaining to her they didn't feel comfortable with his racist, because it just sounds if you speak it well, it sounds racist.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I've heard. Yeah. I mean, over the years, in really more recent years, I've heard every iteration of like people saying that learning an Asian language is racist.
Yeah, where I heard that too. My girlfriend had never heard. She was, a lot of people, unless they pay attention to it, like they go, "What? Nobody's saying that." Like, like you have to hear it, or read to believe it, or people just don't register it. And then but there's always one where you're like, "What the fuck?" And that one is such an obvious like. Is it a form of power to be able to communicate with?
It's funny, the power thing is funny because like I had this idea that I don't know if I did it on stage, but like that, China's obsessed with their own ascent, right? And it's like,
they had that 100 years of shame or something. It's called
150 years of humiliation. Yeah. So they're obsessed with like measuring their success. And I'm like, what better metric is it that it is no longer racist to talk shit about them? Like that means they're powerful.
Yeah, right.
Like they're like, we're dominant now because it's no longer racist to talk shit about us.
Yeah, well, it's an ABC thing, man. Like this is like real. Their college. I'm sure their higher education is not turning out like a ruling class with the kind of gibberish that you, because then there becomes an element of trying to outdo each other. Once you've I don't know if I have a friend on all the time who does, he watches TEDx talks and like just comments on them. And it's great. I just found it by accident looking through like YouTube's. And the thing is, he's some kind of nerd. I've never met him. He's some kind of nerdy guy that probably just wanted to learn something. And so it's just him reacting to not learning anything, like someone who would normally. Remember when TED was like a thing smart? I mean, that was like the smart people thing to go to.
To listen to a TED talk, right?
Well, and also there's TEDx. He called it TED Excellence.
I thought TEDx was just like the guys that couldn't get on the actual TED talk.
Well, that makes like it more sound like it's really. Well, here's what from him watching a ton of them. I've done it with him sometimes since then. A lot of it's marketing. So the big Bill Gates of horseshit is like Robin DiAngelo, where she made White Fragility, and that phrase she gave like a TED. So now you could see the people he does a bingo game because people are trying to market like their version of White Fragility, like a thing that takes off. That's a catchphrase, or like lean in. Doesn't all have to be, some like lean in was one like, so they test market them there. And some people are smarter than others. And then TEDx is like the farm team. It's like a franchise. Like you can get a TEDx name and put it on a thing. And
yeah. That's what I thought. I mean, I don't know anyone that's done a TED talk, but I know like 15 people have done TEDx talks. Yeah. And let me tell you, they don't have anything interesting to say. I was like, I don't know what the requirements are, but I think it's just to have a face. That's it. You can do a TEDx talk.
Yeah, well, then you can do like all these things, like anything but stand up people do. But yeah, I saw one on Lizzo gave a TEDx talk on like how having a fat ass saved her. It was fat gibberish is what it was, but it was. They were like, now they've moved full into like I don't even know. Like Oprah, it's almost like Oprah spiritual to be like, oh, it's a fat woman talk about how journey through fatness, and now she's fat. Like these like long journeys where they are right where they began. And then they've learned it's great. It was already great.
But the talk finishes before the diabetes diagnosis.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure in China, they're not going to have like cards that say, don't weigh me for the doctor. You see that? People buy don't weigh me cards.
Oh, really?
See, that's what I'm talking about. Everybody's like, what?
I mean,
but the thing is,
what's kind of messed up about that?
It's commerce. There's someone selling it. So, it is like, oh, what is a I can't fucking stand saying the woke word, but there's that's the outer bullshit layer. But the main bullshit is some asshole makes these cards. and they sell them, and then they go to the press, and our press is nothing but shills here. So
It's
they're like,
marketing.
yeah, so they market it, and then I don't know what, Ashley Madison was like a fraud, except for I guess Hunter Biden was one of the few people who was getting laid on it. But remember, Ashley Madison turned out it was almost all dudes, and like very few women wanted to cheat on Ashley Madison, like almost
Oh,
none.
right. Yeah. I remember.
I think there were some, but they were like just huge pigs.
They had like a data breach on people cheating, right?
Yeah, Hunter Biden was in it. That's why he got a divorce, or he was about to get a divorce.
That's hilarious.
I just watched something about it. That guy's a legend. He's amazing. And the guy from 19 and Counting, the quiver for the real religious people with the 20 kids, he was on it. That was a scandal for him. The kid that
amazing.
And I think I remember reading his profile. Oh, what the fuck's his name? Josh Duggar, who's now in like deeper trouble for like feeling up, his family incest titties. Like he apparently had all kinds of weird shit. He was accused of like of underage shit.
Oh man.
Later, but back then he was on for that. But if you read the profile, it was almost like says like, yeah, I like some. It's like I want somebody who wants oral sex and to cuddle or something. Like,
that's so perfect. But I love that shit when the mask falls off. And you're like, oh yeah, you're a piece of shit.
Yeah, well, the
like
mask fell off.
Everybody thought you were.
The mask fell off, and it was like lame. I mean, that one, not the underage thing from years later.
Yeah.
On that, it was like the most vanilla. I'm like, wow, that's how lockdown that shit is. I just want to
lashing out.
I'd like to try blowjobs. I heard. Like that. They must be from that sodomy school of Christianity, because Jehovah's Witnesses had a thing. It never hit it big as like an official teaching, but it was a thing, and that counts as sodomy. Like anything that's not in the exact hole. But a lot of people didn't go by that. They kind of had it where it's like it's kind of up to you. But that quiverful movement is a fertility cult. It's like they worship like their dad's dick. My friend Brooke grew up in it. Her stories are crazy. So and there's a rampant the dad doing weird shit with the daughters. That's who else would it appeal to?
I love that. Like it's Easter Sunday morning here. This is the most perfect conversation for Easter Sunday.
Yeah. Well, just funny too. Like, it's all everybody does the same shit. Like everybody does the same shit, and then it's like, what do you make laws around? Like that was the thing I noticed a lot about China was like, because the story this is why I was glad to track you down, because I've been telling that story about, especially now when I was watching. Did you saw the Shanghai people wailing?
I'm all across that. Yeah, I got a lot of friends over there at the moment.
Yeah, well, because I saw that, I was like, that's a big deal if people are doing that. Like that,
it's bad. It's just, the feedback I'm getting from a lot of friends is like, it feels like it could pop off at any minute over there. There's people protesting over there right now, which is insane.
That's what I mean. Like on Jimmy Dore's show, we played it, and I was like, "That's wild, dude. They don't like protest." Now, do you ever watch these guys? There's a guy named Serpensa and his friend. Who's this other guy?
Yeah. I know the guy. I know them.
Yeah, I was trying to get the one on my show.
Winston is Serpensa.
Oh yeah, not Winston. Who's the other guy?
Serpensa.
I watch both of them though.
I know him. And I'm blanking on his name. I don't know if you remember
Sea Milk or something.
Sea Milk is his handle or whatever.
Yeah.
So he's kind of buddies with the guys that we used to make the Mama Hoo Hoo videos with. We used to make these crazy viral videos in China. They were just like comedy videos.
Yeah.
But the guys making the videos knew Sea Milk pretty well. And what's funny is Spencer and Sea Milk were so pro-China, and then just a huge U-turn on their take on it.
Well, what I gathered from watching this, I've watched a bunch of both of this, because they'll have like interesting shit on sometimes about like that viral video with like the weird punk rock looking.
They've got a few good ones. Yeah. Serpensa is a dick. He's an idiot.
No, I wanted the other guy. I didn't want Serpensa. Serpensa, I'm like, I'm fine with I was like, I didn't want the South African guy as much, but I would talk to him. I don't nothing against him.
Yeah, look, they definitely have a lot of insight, no doubt.
Yeah. So, but and this was Serpensa, I think, that said this, that I thought was an interesting thing, is like when you look like the polls of people if they're happy with the government or not, like they tend to not. if I'm not mangling this completely, what he said is mostly China tends to like if they're asked if they like their main government, like Xi and all that, they'll say yes. But when they get mad, it's usually at like the local government for various things that you wouldn't hear about because you're not in China. Well, I mean, I wouldn't.
I think people don't realize that protests do actually happen in China.
That's what I'm saying. But they happen over things where it doesn't really make world news.
I think that it's not that it doesn't make world news. It's that it's hard. It's because everything gets censored so quickly over there. It doesn't even get out, that's why this was so mind blowing to me to see that wailing and out of those buildings. So I'm like, well, what's more mind blowing to me, I mean, that is, but also, by the way, as far as I understand, that wailing video was fake. That's what I'm hearing from.
No shit.
Yeah.
A lot of people. That's why I wanted to talk to you, because I'm like, it was so crazy. Wow. It was
I think it's
maybe
a lot of people are saying it's like, it's been proven to be fake, that video.
Wow. That's why I was asking. This is what that dude Max and the other reporter always telling me about. We get so much not like fake shit here. It's crazy.
Well, I think you got to, it's not just an American problem. Fake stuff is everywhere. And the problem with China is because you can't have any major credible sources. You're forced to watch a video that gets leaked out or whatever, and you have no real method of authenticating that it's real or not.
Yeah, okay. Aaron,
but it also might not be real, So you just have to take everything with a grain of salt.
Well, but see, I'm sure their lockdowns suck. So I'm already inclined to believe
the lockdowns are real and the lockdowns are bad. I mean, I have a lot of friends that are there. There's no question that people
that's
are
great.
Struggling to get food. I know people that are there who have very sick people in their buildings who need cancer or diabetes medication and cannot get it. I know people that can't get food. I know someone who. So one of the problems is that you test positive and you get put in a fucking warehouse for however long. If you eventually get out, people are getting back to their apartment buildings, and the compound, the apartment buildings, they won't let them in. I know one guy had to sleep on the street for 4 days because he just got dumped at his apartment building. There's nothing going on in the street and he can't get inside. And this is like
wow.
Reasonably, I mean, I think he owned his apartment. He's like, a middle-class guy.
God, it's so fucking crazy to think. This is why I wanted to ask you about it, because that's the kind of shit I want to know. Because that's what I don't know. You never hear that. Like it's a terrible thing. And also there's fake videos coming out at the same time. So I would
many of them are real though, or many.
I've seen the warehouse ones, and I was like, okay, that looks like. Because
I know people who are on Instagram in there filming around, being like, "This is where I am right now."
Yeah, right.
And so there's enough of the footage to be like, I don't think China's trying to deny that those places exist or what they look like. Right. Another crazy story is like they have evicted an entire set of apartment buildings, just taken the people out of their own houses because they want to convert that apartment building into like a quarantine facility. So people can just get pulled out of their own houses so that they can. People in.
It's like the downside of having the power to make a great monorail. They also have the power to do that.
Right. I mean, it's hard to like, I don't know. It's, you sit there and I think most people just who aren't tankies want to see the CCP lose their ability to behave like this. I
can't believe how much we, it's amazing to me the level of where like people could say like China's the enemy or not all they want, but like they got like we're so in bed with China on every level of everything and bit like of course they're not gonna of course Disney's gonna edit the gays out and the blacks to send a movie to China. Like why wouldn't they? I would even blame China. Like if I'm the CCP, I'm like, yeah, they got greedy people literally do anything for money. And like we do. Like when the Wuhan lab leak theory that very obviously got suppressed here by the press in like a bizarre way where, I'm not the first to point this out, where like it's racist to say that it could be from the lab. It's less racist to say they eat bat shit. And
that's right. Yeah.
That, and it just didn't make any sense. Like, you don't have to be bright to be like, that doesn't add up on any level. But the thing that did surprise me, like, oh, of course, we funded a guy who funded a guy who like outsources it to China. And somebody probably wanted to do that research too, but a big part of it is us like outsourcing the guy, like, don't worry, I got this covered. And then typical like classic Chinese, like, I don't know that, I think people imagine a lot of this shit is like directly from Xi or something, but at every level, this is what I'm wondering is like, if it's going so bad in Shanghai, do you think it's like, how high up in the government is it where like, we got to suppress this before it gets, because aren't they in like deep shit if they like, does that top down thing kind of make these weird situations like that? Like where
you're touching on a couple of different things. And like first point I think you were kind of getting at is Xi Jinping really the decision maker? And the answer is that he has an insane amount of control over issues. And his whole thing is that they call him the chairman of everything. So he basically removed this idea of any separation of powers and has put him in charge of anything. And so if you know about anything, he knows about it. There's no insight that we have about China that wouldn't be covered off by him. Right. Like to say that he doesn't know what's going on in Shanghai, he's making the decisions in Shanghai. They've sent down. So but another thing you touched on is are people lower down trying to hide things?
Yes,
absolutely.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. And so like in Wuhan, the generally, held consensus is that the local authorities did try to cover it up before Beijing really got a handle on it. And that allowed it to get to a certain level when it might have been stopped. Yeah, for sure. But, you're talking about stuff happening at a time when it's unknown. But once it starts to become known, it's like Xi Jinping's not missing the memo,
Oh yeah, no, I that's you kind of, I was like jumbled trying to put together, but what you just said, it's like the drawback of the guy who there's nothing that he's not going to find out about is then you have these people below you. They have to lie to you all, So wait out.
I don't want to lose their job,
Yeah. And so these problems, like, it's not like it doesn't work that way here to a degree too, but they're like, I always think when you were telling me about how when I came out there, I guess comedy or something was banned because a bar was jealous that stand-up was doing well. And then you tell me you had to go to the local. Explain that story again so it got banned and you had contacts with the officials. All right, go ahead. You explain it.
There's a couple of things, and the banning. I mean, that was kind of the tip of the iceberg at that point. I mean, you kind of came as it was starting to happen, and then it just got worse and worse and worse. But actually, what happened was, a big thing in China throughout at least the history of modern China, and I think even longer than that, is this idea of just people reporting on each other. It's just such a common feature of and the government's kind of played into that feature and set up ways to allow people to report on each other. And we were doing shows in Suzhou, and one bar reported on the other bar for having a band that didn't have a license or whatever, and just threw them under the bus with the Culture Bureau. And that shit happens all the time. It's really common. So we had James Adomian out there, and Turner and I in the back of a show in Suzhou. We were doing shows every years and years and years and years, and someone's filming, and I go to stop him, and Turner's like, "I think they might be government." And we've had government guys come through. We've had government guys trying to write down jokes, which is hilarious.
Wow.
Just dude in the front row just pulls out a notepad and starts like jotting down what the comedian's saying.
It sounds like the old Lenny Bruce where like the cops would jot down his jokes for his court case. Like,
I love that. The story about him was he was in court.
Yeah.
And the judge said, "Did you say this?" He said, "You're not like that."
Yeah, right.
Like when I said it was funny, there was like a room full of people laughing.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's the ultimate out of context, but
so we had a Domian, and long story short, he was, because we were in this process of trying to get them. China was opening up. The laws were changing. We were dealing with the Culture Bureau. We're trying to get them to create licensing specific to what we were doing, because the licensing available was just for like music and like big events music. It just didn't make sense. You had to get scripts approved and translated and all this stuff. It was just an impossible. You either don't have stand-up or you change your system situation.
Yeah, right.
And they knew about us, and they were like, yeah, okay, just do your thing. And they would come through every now and then, and it was okay. But in places like China and Russia, what they will often do is have these laws that are, you can't do anything under the laws, but then they don't enforce them. And
right.
so people, the economy kind of develops in a direction. And then when they decide that they want to start enforcing the laws, and it's sort of like, well, this wasn't about the law, was it? Because you were happy to let this thing happen.
Is that intentional out of the gate? Like, we're going to make it a law?
Yeah, absolutely.
If we feel like
it, I've got you by the balls because I can just grab you and apply this thing whenever I want. And in fact, if you really get into it, the concept of the rule of law is that the law applies equally at all times to all people. And if you don't have that, you really don't have a legal system at all.
Right.
You just have, arbitrary people just saying, I'm going to do what I feel like doing today.
If that's the case, then who has a legal system? If everybody needs to be treated fairly, like, can we call
it an ideology, right? Like,
right.
It doesn't mean that you have it, but you at least aspire to it. And it's a general.
No, that's an important, that's a very important distinct. In fact, I knew that, but I didn't think it, because especially now that there's open at, we had a vote in California to they wanted to get rid of the equality thing in the state constitution, that you had to treat people equal. They wanted to get rid of that, and it failed overwhelmingly. And all these people were predicting that it was going to succeed, but people that's a shitty thing. Like that can backfire. It's all, you can use it to your advantage until it's then used on you, and it just goes on like that.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's amazing to me is I just forgot about that. It's supposed to be equal application of people at all times.
To all people.
Yeah. And so I guess the counter argument would be, well, it's not a plot. So you're saying it's an ideology. I get your point. It's what you're striving for.
You're going to have a perfect legal system, but to use a basic analogy, is if you said in your own household, okay, we're all going to be nice to each other, right? And you're not always nice to each other, but your goal is to be nice to each other.
Right.
It is a theme of how you interact.
Yeah, right.
It's like not having that. And you're like, we're just going to be terrible to each other and we have no aspirations to be anything different. Like, that's the difference between these two scenarios.
I'd say, that's a good way to put it. I'm shocked at the amount of, because if you think about China being like that, a culture of snitching, our intent is to we want this thing set up so you're pitted against. We have our own version of pitting people against each other here. It's interesting what laws somebody makes to do that and how intentional. I thought if China was fascinating, that kind of planning ahead, these power moves. And when you were explaining to me about the club, because you got snitched on, and then I think you told me they were we know you're not spreading any communist propaganda, but you just can't do it because someone reported you.
Yeah. So what happened was, to just finish that story. So basically a Domian was there, and, they shot everything down, and we were like, a Domian never hit the stage, but they were like, this guy's doing stand-up. We're like, no, he's not. And he's faces on posters, all over the venue kind of thing. Right. And they're like, charging money. We're like, we're not charging money. He's like, this post has a price on it. This isn't going anywhere. Right. There's just no chance of us. And we're just lying, we'll see how far we can get through this. But the piece of advice that I got from a friend I have who works in government policy there, he's like, don't hide from them. They already know who you are and everything about you. If you hide from them, you'll give them a reason not to be nice in how they make this play out. Mm-hmm. But be open, be available, give them what they ask for. Don't fuck around. So I do that, we hand the passports over, we tell them, we added them on WeChat. How funny is that? Government officials roll in with their badges and shut everything down. And all that happened at the end of the night was they added me on WeChat on social media.
Wow. I don't know if that's a lighthearted thing in that story or a dark future
that's not the end of
media.
It. That's just what happened that night.
Well, right? Here, we just want you to think of that. That is good enough.
Yeah, I just want you to add me on Facebook. That stuff that the police have raided you.
Yeah. But I feel that's a good, it's just what a tool that shit is, where they feel comfortable. Well, we got your fucking electronic connection.
Yeah, once I've got this, I can access you easily. And so what happened was maybe a week later or something, I get a message from him saying, "Hey, we want you to come in to the bureau in Suzhou." And I don't live in Suzhou. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm not in your city, so I can't come in." And the guy says, "Well, if you don't, by tomorrow at the latest, we'll hand your details over the entry exit bureau, and you'll be out of this country straight away." So I was like, "Okay, I'll come." And I go in there, and I speak Chinese, and I made an effort to, they were very nice. They fucking brought me in. They gave me tea, and they were like, "Don't do this anymore. We don't want this anymore." And I mean, that was it. But we died in that one city, because the other thing is like, you can have a national problem or you can have a local problem.
Wait, which city? Which city? Suzhou?
I was in Suzhou. Yeah.
That's the first one I did was Suzhou.
I mean,
Suzhou, Hangzhou.
If you knew, no, we'd never do Suzhou before Hangzhou. You probably did either.
I know I did Suzhou.
Probably did Chengdu.
No, I swear to God, I did Suzhou. That's like the one that I remember.
If you did Suzhou, it wouldn't have been on a Tuesday. It might have been we usually do it on a Thursday because it's next to Shanghai. Shanghai's Friday, Saturday.
I did before Shanghai. That's right.
Yeah. Let me see. I could actually look it up. Curt Metzger Suzhou. Here we go. Oh, I'm not getting anything for Suzhou.
Really? Did they cancel Suzhou? I remember Hangzhou, Suzhou, and I couldn't remember how to say Hangzhou.
I'm trying to
remembered to say.
If I can get your tour poster from somewhere. So it's all on the internet somewhere. Anyway, mate, I'll figure it out another time. But
there was 3. I remember there was 3.
Yeah. We probably took you out to Chengdu, maybe Hangzhou, maybe Wuxi.
There wasn't.
Yeah, anyway, whatever. It's also like we also did a bunch of illegal shit, so we might have just taken you there, even though we'd already been shut down.
No, I was on some. You would tell me at the time it was on like some kind of list to even come in, like some email list. It sounded like not.
Oh, you know what? I think you're right. I think there was a phase where we were doing shows, but only with people that we know.
Yeah, that's what, and
yeah, no, I think you're right. So basically, there was no marketing. It was all like no ticketing link or anything. Right. They were just sending us money on WeChat. Yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah, I've got such a bad memory, but that actually rings a bell now.
Well, I think that gig was the one. There was some Irish guy who kept going, "Talk about Trump," like over and over.
Oh my God, yeah.
Some drunk dude. And then after I got off, and I was talking, he was just shit faced. And he goes, this is before Trump got in. He was like, "But don't you think you have a responsibility to talk about Trump?" By the way, I had done.
Oh my God!
I think I did like 3 Trump jokes. By the way, he was just drunk and didn't hear them, or they weren't like. It was like no, like a responsibility. Like it's unreal the presumption of people. Like I've decided. You ever hear somebody say? I wonder what like the Chinese version of this is. But I was watching somebody like Brian Stelter, fucking egg-shaped dude on CNN that. He's like the punching bag of CNN. He's awful. And he looks like Divine out of drag, if you remember Divine.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, and he's such like a fucking full of shit little dude. And so people call him out on it all the time. There's always like clips of him getting like, and so this guy wasn't trying to insult him. It was some guy from Yale doing a study on partisanship which by the way, you need a study to figure that out.
Hilarious.
And surprised, I found out a lot of people who prefer Fox News will stick watching that, and then the CNN people. So then Brian Stelter goes, "Yeah, we've been saying this about Fox News for." And he goes, and the guy wasn't trying to. He's just a nerd scientist who's like, "Well, actually, they both do engage in the." The guy was even trying to like come his way. Everybody's like, "Well," he goes, "Somebody, it sounds like both siderism." He goes, "You ever hear somebody say both siderism?"
Oh my God, no, but I get it.
It's a common in U.S. fucking press thing. That and whataboutism, the 2 biggest moron phrases I've ever heard.
Well, I got to pull you up on that one because whataboutism is a huge problem in China and Russia as well, because it's their deflection strategy for taking responsibility for fucking. And whataboutism.
You know what? I have a problem with the buzz phrase of it because of how it, or whataboutery I've heard, which sounds like a place in the mall where you buy like pants. I got it the whataboutery, but
that's where you're actually going to the strippers.
I can see. Okay, but the idea behind whataboutism, I fucking hate that term. Is I get that part because it's like, hey, we're
a deflection by finding something bad that somebody else has done, as if you could be charged with murder, and your defense would be other people have murdered. So
what we do here, what I see people do in America, because I got to argue with friends about it, and I like there's nothing America is going to get involved in that I'm now in any kind of after the last goddamn 20 years where I'm going to get emotional about. For example, Ukraine, which kind of cured COVID, so credit for that.
Yeah.
I don't know anything really about Ukraine. I mean, from looking shit up on it, but for people to get them worked up over it, I'm like, shut the fuck. How do you even have this kind of righteous indignation? And then they say things like, well, you can't invade a smaller country. I'm like, are you kidding me? You can't do that? No shit. Yeah, it sounds bad. And so the burden of the powerful entity there is the difference to me. Like if I'm in China, let's say I'm in, it's just like somebody calling the kettle black, but different, going different ways. And the deflection is, it's deflecting shit you did. Like, I don't give a shit about Putin. I'm sure he sucks. I'm not deflecting for Putin. I don't have any connection to him. Do you know what I mean? When these guys are like, well, that's whataboutism.
But Putin uses that strategy. Like Putin,
I'm sure he does.
Uses it.
Which
Chinese people use it.
Accusing you of it, or
no, of saying, but look what America's doing.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Literally, America does, but then it gets reversed. I don't know somehow, depending on how it suits someone.
Right.
Like if you're a murderer and you accuse someone of murder, it's the same thing. Like this is more like you're a murderer and there's another guy who's a murderer and you keep telling me that how this guy's a murderer. And I'm like, yeah, but you're a murderer. Like I'm not a murderer. So that I'm not whatabouting because I didn't murder anyone. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but the problem is that the US is not a person, right? And the fact that it's done things in the past shouldn't preclude the world from, I'm not American, right?
No, not in the past. Listen, I would say, hey, let's all get past it, Teehee. The shit they do now is crazy. And what's scary, and this is just shit I didn't know about. And I think we talked about it in the car, I think, with you when I first got there. I seem to remember talking about this too, but
you got a good memory, by the way. I wish I had your memory.
Dude, I can't tell you how much pot I smoke, and it won't I can't kill it.
I feel like
I keep trying to kill it, and it just stays like. So that's the thing. It's something particularly smart. Like I just remember so many little things, and then I've noticed things from years ago. So it's amazing shit. Like it'll dawn on me, and then what scares me is, especially here, shit is set up where you're supposed to forget about a thing it was the thing you cared about most in the world 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, sure.
And then you're supposed to forget. So for example, I find this disturbing. People just forget about it. But when the vaccines came out, or when starting to come out, because Trump had Operation Warp Speed, okay? And articles are coming out let's not be too hasty rushing a vaccine, because he was making it. All the regular news, like your Joyanne Reeds and your whatever, were like, I'm not. They sounded like fucking anti-vaxxers. It was unbelievable. And then after it came out, they're like, how could you even think? Now, by the way, I got it right away. I'm not a guy who's generally allergic to vaccines. I'm probably fine. Some people, though, literally can't take them medically. It's a small amount of people. And so there's always this societal thing of well, fuck you, take it anyway. There's a Pledge of Allegiance now. We're all doing it. We're going to crack down on. And then it became beyond all logic. I got the 2 shots and then I wasn't I don't care if you're vaccinated or not. I thought I'm going to live. Why would it matter to me? It sounds like the people who are going to be damaged by this are unvaccinated people. So that didn't never added up. And I would ask, I'm like, well, why do you care? It's like a circle. And they go, well, it slows the spread. Which, by the way, did it? But so that's not an answer to the question. Why? It's okay. It slows the spread. That just means you're trying to be encouraging by like condemning these people. I don't understand so it wasn't about that. It became about another thing. And there's like this thing to oversimplify everyone. I think it's to make it easier to like keep track of. So
and the oversimplification thing, it's like, yeah, man, there's just difficult things to understand. It's like,
well,
I think it's in our own nature to try to simplify concepts. And that's one of the problems is like, getting back to this point about whataboutism, it's like, we want to think of the US as this singular entity that is making decisions and taking responsibility. And it's just a far more complex idea than that. And you could say, all right, but we want to hold it accountable like that. But the other side to that coin is, okay, but then we live in a world where we can't condemn any action that someone can't point to somebody else that's already done the same thing. And as an Australian, as a non-American, I don't fucking care if America's done something bad. That does not prevent me from saying that the Chinese government.
I'm glad you said that. Hong Kong. I'm not saying because I was on this other podcast arguing with them, like, because I don't care that America did something bad. What I'm not going to engage in is where I'm personally like, I can't believe being a hypocrite's the thing that bugs me.
People, I think a good point you're kind of sneaking into, maybe inadvertently, is that the lay of the land does change. And like a good example of that, I think, was like there was a point at which, I guess, let's say, for the sake of argument, the conservative people, some of them were saying maybe we should just let the virus in. Maybe we should just let it rage. And I think Boris Johnson did say that. And people were like, that is an unheard of suggestion. And now we realize it was totally inevitable. And
want to hear something scary? I knew that shit. To all the people they told you you're not allowed to listen to, like that Malone that they banned off of. This is my favorite. Like, well, you're not a son. What are you, a doctor? The guy who's a doctor. He said all this shit. The science didn't change. It was the same shit back then, and I remember it. And he goes, you can't vaccinate your way out. You're going to have, I work on Jimmy Dore show. He got injured by, now I didn't get the fucking Johnson or whatever the fuck he got.
Yeah.
I love that it's so great. There's 3 of them, and we know some are better than others.
It's
but he got fucking sick from it. And he got, because people got long COVID. That chick that collapsed, Heather McDonald, did you see her from?
No, I didn't see that.
She you couldn't have written. The audience is laughing when she falls because it looked like she was doing physical comedy. She goes,
this is the comedian?
Yeah, we get that video. Oh, wait, he might be gone.
No, he's gone.
Yeah, Heather McDonald. I can't pop it up, but I played it on here before. It's unbelievable. She goes, I got she got like the 3 shots and I got a shingles vaccine. She's talking about whatever. Jesus loves me. And then she fucking goes, she does like a cha-cha to the side.
Oh, I'm saying it now. Faints on stage. I don't know if I can share my video.
No, it's got to be his, but he's
I think I can share screen. Yeah, really? I can share screen.
Oh, yeah. I don't know anything about Ukraine or computers.
Here we go.
Yeah, watch this. So here's what's eerie. Now, I knew she was fucked up, so
let me get a stand up for you.
It didn't make me laugh when I saw it because I saw it knowing she got fucked up. So the sound is like sickening to me, but the audience is laughing because you couldn't. It looks like she intended to do this. All right, turn it all the way up.
All right, I got volume. All right, you ready?
Oh yeah.
Brag, I don't care, but I want you to know, double vaxxed, booster, flu shot, and I'm going to be honest, I have the shingle shot too. And I still get my period. What? Yes. Traveled, went to Mexico twice, did shows, meet and greets, never got COVID. Clearly, Jesus loves me the most. Seriously. So nice. So nice.
Oh, bro. That's a big fall.
Dude, so she fractured her skull on that fucking mic stand.
No.
So guess what? That was the thing happening to people getting the booster. Like, you know how they say now we're going to say space them apart longer? We weren't sure before. They've quietly spaced the vaccine doses out since then. The thing that's crazy is you don't have to read fringe information. Most people don't even pay attention to the official sources, what they say. And if you do...
That was recent. That was Feb.
Yeah.
This year.
Okay, then there's an interview with her and Dr. Drew where she's asking Dr. Drew, have you heard like about anything like this happening? And he goes, yeah, after 3-week mark with the booster. See, 2 people from the FDA resigned when they approved the boosters for under 65. See, it's all playing odds. So over 65, they were like, yeah, get a booster. They pushed it through for everyone suddenly, and the 2 heads of that department resigned in protest, which was news. I guess not that big of news, but that didn't sit well with me.
Yeah.
And then, so she has a doctor who's like, yeah, in the 3-week mark, some people get, that's when you all the myocarditis, enlarged heart, and the people faint and shit. And like,
yeah.
Dr. Drew goes, my friend, he can't walk across the room now because he got Bell's palsy or something from it. And
from the vaccine.
It was the booster. Again, it's a small amount of people, but they're giving, this is a thing that it's like they rush this. So they don't know. Normally there'd be a lot more time. Oh, so here's how I found this out. This is crazy, by the way, because everybody brings up polio. I had a polio shot, right? I'm sure in the 80s, and I had never got polio. And so it worked fine for me. You know, when people started being like, I don't trust vaccines, there's a historical reason.
I know the polio story. Yeah.
Well, I found out because I was reading an article from before the election where Trump was like, we're going to have a terrific vaccine. And somebody who was against Trump, obviously, and they're like, we need to have caution. You know, here's how vaccine hesitancy. So this wasn't fringe. This was the regular media writing this. And so I guess, I don't know, some crazy amount of kids got polio from it, not because vaccine is bad or it doesn't work, because the corporation who made it accidentally left live or in the process where you're supposed to kill the virus they were putting live viruses into it. So the first batch wasn't so great, even though by the time I had it, it was all the kinks had been worked out. So of course I was fine. So that took, what is that, like 1912 or something? Whenever the fuck that came out, that's a lot of time to get that quite right. So the people, like I just watched Ronnie Cheng's Netflix, his new one. His first one, by the way, was great. I thought it was funny shit. I turned off his second one. It made me like angry. I was like, Jesus, fuck. Because I can't fucking stand watching like somebody do the like, first of all, he's very vague. He goes, just do that thing. Just do the science and let the nerds control it. Like in China, we want that? Nah. He goes, like, he's not specific enough. So he hasn't done any research himself. And I love his thing. Like, I don't know anything. So that means you don't know anything. No, motherfucker. I just have I don't even need to know anything. I just remember shit that happened 5 minutes ago. And then I go, that doesn't add up. So he's doing I saw Aziz do this stupid fucking, I hadn't seen him in a while too. I was like, hey, I was actually like happy to see him when I saw him. I'd hurt my back. I think he thought I was crippled now. We got to say, he's like, geez, I haven't seen Card in a while. And his back's bent over. And I think he thought I was like permanently, I was fucked up. My back was fucked. Anyway, he does a whole thing about Aaron Rodgers, the football player. Remember because by the way, it turns out natural immunity, it does work. That's weird. My whole life I heard that was a thing. Then all of a sudden, like, no, I'm sick of hearing about it. Now they're like, in hindsight, the best booster is one shot and having COVID once. That's the best protection you can get. That's weird. Everybody else was like, shh. So it wasn't about anything science. This is what bugs me is anybody tells me they believe in science. I'm like, go find Jesus, because you're not supposed to believe in it. You're supposed to, it's analysis and shit. I'm sure lots of people are stupid. I don't care about that. I went, okay, I'll get these 2 shots because my odds are good. And then I don't give a fuck what anybody did. Why are you worried about what everybody else fucking did if it works? And then I only found out this is why I'm such a fucking pothead now, because I can either learn new things or stop smoking pot. I can't do both. It's too like, they just won a court case. These doctors at Yale to get the data on the vaccines. They don't have to be public with it. Like the shit that it's not for me to read. It's like doctors can't, and the people who peer review it, they don't get to read it. So they go to court, and the FDA, Pfizer, they petition to keep it sealed for 75 years. Like the JFK fucking shit that they just sealed again that they were supposed to release. So it's like a JFK secret. Why would that possibly be a thing for any reason that in any way benefits the people that only benefits like Pfizer and them? So now they're releasing it and they have redactions, but you could still see it's fucked up. So he's talking about Aaron Rodgers. I mean, guys, what do you expect? The football player decided to do his own research. He's not going to make the right choice. And you're like, oh, I'm like, you think a professional football player doesn't know a million times better than you what the fuck goes in their money maker? I'm sure he had only the best.
I'm going to stop you there. I'm not putting football players on any pedestals of knowledge.
Professional football players.
Whatsoever.
Dude, first of all, drug addicts who survive and professional football players. I used to always joke about drug addicts like no first aid and shit. like
that's funny.
Like they do. Like they all know. So that's how you know about how, it's funny. Like I used to be hooked on OxyContin. In fact, I was coming off it when I went to China. That was when I was first put on Suboxone.
Oh yeah, that's tough, man.
Yeah, and so it's amazing what you find out about all the like. I never used to drink with it. It was like that's what people do. It like kills your liver. Like I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to drink if I'm taking this shit. But yeah, even then it starts to kill your liver. But the average knowledge, like, because what happens is there's like an arms race of taking it recreationally. After this scumbag company intentionally, not if only we had known.
Just got the country hooked on it.
They knew it was heroin. Like that's what people. I don't know. I guess people saw a documentary, but it's intentional. It's not like mistakes were made. They go, oh, now we got to still sell this heroin now that we know it.
Slow release heroin or whatever.
Oh, by the way, the woman who approved that shit is still there. I was laughing like, oh, thank God they got their act together in time for the vaccine so we can trust it and not have any, in fact, be an asshole to even have a reservation about it. That's the attitude. And I don't think people put together, they don't have your interests at heart. And it's weird because the same people that what I'm talking about, it's like well, I don't know, you don't live here, but it's like a Democrat, like, how dare you even question this? And it's like a way of getting ahead. That's what Ronnie Chang was doing. He was doing like a real, like his joke I liked about how Chinese parents think helping people is a unfortunate side effect of being a doctor.
Oh yeah, that's a great bit. Yeah.
So he's dressed like fucking James Bond in this new one with a white tuxedo and bow tie, and his hair's all like, and he's just saying this arrogant. I'm like, wow, you went full like Chinese with, you went like full. Who's telling me that Asian parents, if the guy's white, they hope he's Jewish? Like, oh, you Jew? You are Jew? Like, because
that's
they
hilarious.
Really love Jews for all the reasons people have bad stereotypes about Jews. Like,
you know what? It's funny you say that because I actually was reading something recently about how the Russians convinced prior to the Second World War, were trying to convince the Japanese that the Jews controlled the world.
Right.
And that
what the protocols was for? To convince the Japanese, or was that for internal use?
They were trying to convince everyone. But they tried to convince them that. And there was the protocols. The purpose of that was just to get everyone thinking the same way about this, that they control the media and the banks and all that sort of stuff. And the Japanese takeaway was, oh, they must be a great ally. Like if they control the media and the banks, we should work with them.
Yeah, right.
And it's true, actually. When the Japanese beat the Russian Navy in like 1905.
Yeah, that was their big fucking. That's the only time I think a Western power got beat by the.
And it was funded by Jewish investment bankers in Wall Street who saw the Tsar as being anti-Semitic and wanted to get one up on him. And so the biggest haven for Jewish refugees during the Second World War was Shanghai. And
wow, interesting.
The reason it was allowed was because the Japanese controlled Shanghai and they wanted to do business with the rich Jewish businessmen that were there. And they were like, that's fine. You got to let the refugees camp out here.
Well, great. We'll take your successful
Asian people. I mean, the refugees weren't the powerful ones, but the fifth or sixth richest man in the world was living in Shanghai at that point, and he was a Jewish guy from Baghdad.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, Shanghai was amazing when I went there. It really was reminded me of like the village, especially because I thought you froze. When I saw Joe's Pizza, I was like, get the fuck out of here. Now, I vaguely remember Joe's Pizza has a poster in New York that might say Shanghai on it, or they might have just taken the logo, put it on. But
that happens all the time, and also, Michael Jordan had to sue. Like they just stole his logo and his name and sold sports clothes. like en masse in China, and he sued them and lost. They were like, "No, it's a different Jordan that played basketball."
The thing where there's something also I noticed when you got in a fight with that guy. So I used to tell the story of running from the cops, because this is why I don't remember why you got in the dispute. There was like
I had forgotten about it, but I remember it. You want me to tell you why it happened?
Yeah, why did it happen?
So we were staying in Hangzhou in the hotel just across the road from the bar, and it was in kind of an apartment complex. And we ordered the car in, and the car drove through the boom gate to get into the sort of area downstairs. And I think we took 5 minutes to come down or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then the guy running the boom gate was like, "I'm charging you money for parking in here." And I was like, "This is ridiculous." So then I just lifted the boom gate up, which was like made of plastic.
Yeah, I saw. I didn't understand you guys were fighting. I was making a joke
he was trying to charge us money. He was trying to charge us money for being there.
Well,
and we're like, "Mate, we're staying at the hotel." Like,
you raised your voice, but like Australian, such a friendly accent. I thought maybe you were telling him a joke or something.
That's hilarious.
Like, no worries. I thought you were just talking.
You thought I was just like, knock, knock. Like,
and then I saw you like trying to break this plastic thing. I'm like, oh, they're fighting. And then
like, this
I think I had a neck pillow on. You're in the car and you go, "Hey, we got to go. The cops are coming." And then I'm running with my wheelie bag. And then we went 2 blocks. You're like, "All right, I think we're safe." We went like a block and a half because they won't come after you.
Well, I just figured, you just never want to stick around when the cops coming in that country. Because if you're right, you're in the wrong.
Are you the one that got hit by the moped? And the cop was like a guy rode his moped into you, or was that Turner? Somebody, I thought it was you telling me.
I got pepper sprayed by someone in traffic on a scooter. Just like he nearly ran over a bunch of people, and I was like, "Hey, fucking watch out, man. That was really dangerous." And then he followed me down the street and like pepper sprayed me while I was riding my scooter.
Wow.
And yeah, but the same situation with like the cops come. It just doesn't matter. If you're white, you're in the wrong. So you don't want to be around when they get there.
Yeah, right.
There's no way you're going to be able to make your case. Actually, there was one time when I was walking down the footpath. This is a true story. And a guy decided to go from the road onto the footpath at full speed. And he just ran into me. Like I was just on the footpath, the scooter on the road just drove up on the footpath and just hit me and like fucking knocked me down hard. And I was like so pissed off. I was like, smashed my head on the ground and everything.
Right. That's what
a cop rocked up and I was like, I speak Chinese. I'm like, you know what? I'm totally in the right here. No question. I was just going to explain to this cop. And I said to the cop, this is what happened. This is what happened. The other guy didn't even say anything. And the cop turns around to the other guy and goes, "How much do you want him to pay you?" And I was just like, I can't believe that just happened.
Yeah, right. They don't have guns though, right? That's the thing.
No, but I mean, I'm like, what am I going to do? And do you know what I did?
You can run from them, I thought.
So I ran away.
Yeah.
I just ran off because I'm like, they're not going to catch me, and I ran and I hid in some bushes and I'm like squatting in bushes. And I realized as I was standing in the bushes that I was standing in human shit.
Oh God.
Someone had took a shit in the bushes. I was like, this is not a good day. I've just ruined my shoes. And
wow. Do you think San Francisco is like that because of the Chinese population?
Oh my God. No,
San Francisco.
I cannot attach my name to that.
You know how they have an app? No, it's obviously the junkies. They have an app called Snapcrap that's very popular there. So you can avoid the human shits on the side. It's like a traffic of human shits app.
What more do you need to know your city's in trouble when that's like an app that people would download?
Oh, it's probably the most, it has a really nice little community. A bunch of people report on shits that they see.
Do they like rank them?
Well, I always joke like
descriptions.
Yeah, they probably Like you can use it to avoid or find a place to shit. It probably works for either.
Yeah.
Either way, it's useful to everyone.
How do I get a clean shot at dirtying an area? You know, I don't want to be like shitting next to someone else's shit.
Wow, that's I forgot about
You know
that.
what would be better than that app? Toilets. There's a bit of technology that could implement. How about you just shit in a toilet? Yeah.
If only we had some kind of app to fix this problem. People don't have anywhere to shit.
They're like, what? How do we solve this? I know. Let's just avoid all the parts of the city. Dude, people have had the aqueducts are in ancient Rome. The fucking
What about
in
toilets?
0 BC, in fucking the first year of this millennia, people were shitting and running water. What are you doing?
A high tech. I have a tech solution that will.
You know, there's this story. It's about the NASA invested in a pen.
Yeah. Oh, the guy. Yeah. Wait.
You know about this? The NASA wanted a pen that didn't require gravity for the ink to come out.
Oh yeah,
smooth.
and Russia just had a pencil.
And Russia were like, yeah, we have pencils.
Yeah, like it really is amazing. It shows you like contract. That's why we're so in bed with China. Is like this third person contract. It really is amazing the amount of like turning it like. I mean, maybe this is whataboutism too, but where I'm like, I can't really get worked up over Putin. Like, I know I'm supposed to fucking care about somehow Hillary lost because of Putin and not her own sucking to lose to fucking Donald Trump. It's not, it couldn't be that you suck, right? Like, I'm with you. I'm with her.
Yeah,
so
I mean, I don't know about any of that, but if I could just play one note on Putin, because my wife is Russian and I live with, you know, my mother-in-law is
yeah,
Russian.
please do.
And their lives are being ruined, you know, in Russia. Russia's life is so hard for Russians because of Putin. You know,
You mean as in with sanctions or you mean his own crackdowns?
I mean, the economy is a fucking disaster.
Yeah, the sanctions yeah.
I mean, even before that, the economy was a disaster. I think the economy's been shit it's been in decline since he took power in the 90s.
Wasn't it that okay? I mean, I'm sure that's true, by the way, not to doubt that anyway. I didn't know when I was a kid and the Soviet Union fell, and I remember my teachers were all in love. Like, you know, your teachers kind of talk about shit. They were like, at the time, it was very popular to be like, oh, Boris Yeltsin, that guy's really working towards. I still remember my English teacher. What the fuck is her name?
I think a lot of people still feel that way.
Yeah, he fucking was a drunk disaster. I didn't know. I think it's in an old PJ O'Rourke book I read one time, but he was talking about how Boris Yeltsin, it's called Eat the Rich. And he goes all around the world and he has like a chapter on like good communism, good socialism, bad socialism, good capitalism, bad capitalism. And he has country examples.
Yeah.
And so like Albania was like where everything's just a pyramid scheme, you know, like at worst, it's a pyramid scheme. you know, like and Albania, when all these places fell, I mean, much the way I guess even Marxism is not supposed to be feudal directly to communism society. It's supposed to be capitalism goes that way on its own was Marx's idea. And so they're like, no, we could microwave this. And then when we came after the fall, we're like, yeah, we can free market will fix that. So all these people had been getting like services and shit. And suddenly, and then they got vouchers or something from the government where they all owned a piece. And then a few guys scammed everybody out of them. It was like a big scandal when people figured out. Meanwhile, like they've been using vodka to control the people for years. So there's all these people wake up in a hangover like, wait a minute, like these guys just took over. So the whole oligarchs got set up. And Yeltsin, there's one line I remember was so funny about how he was on his world tour and they would kind of have to cover up what a drunk he is. There's that famous video of Bill Clinton and him laughing. Bill Clinton's laughing because he can't believe this guy's so drunk.
Yeah.
And they said he got so drunk he couldn't meet the president of Ireland. He goes, imagine being so
that's right. Oh man,
the president of Ireland, like that's legendary.
that's such a fucking hilarious like stereotype cliche. You'd think you'd have to be too sober to meet the president of Ireland.
Yeah, the thing so what I remember from the people fawning over him when I was a kid, and then finding that out is there's a lot of marketing because basically, hey, if you have a blanket idea like, hey, well, I know it'll fix all your problems. Free trade, and then I'm going to bring my our companies in. We're going to help you out with it. And you know that's how China You were the first person to really tell me about how China does things compared to us. Everybody does debt slavery to colonize. That's how you do it now. You can't be invading openly, generally. Putin. You get people in debt and then you own their assets. And so China just doesn't blow them up and tell them they got to be a whatever government or, they like, so then
well, it's a more cost-effective way to invade a place without dealing with all the politics of it. Yeah. But, I think the problem is that people can do good things and not be perfect. The collapse of the USSR was unequivocally, you've got a pretty hard case to make that was a bad
not
thing.
The collapse. That part's listen. Any kind of thing where you're not living under a goddamn secret police. The disaster part was much the way we rebuilt Iraq with like idiots that were friends of like the Bush fucking. That went to Bob Jones University. There's a lot of great writing from back then. This one guy was out there. He was called the War Nerd, and he had great fucking interesting articles about this shit out there because basically all that de-Baathification nonsense, a bunch of people had to be in the Baath party to have jobs running things, and they weren't all, but they're like, no, we need to get every trace of this out. Well, those are the people that keep the lights on, and even fucking Lenin understood you had to have that shit, or I guess maybe Trotsky. But anyway, they fucking replaced them with people who didn't even speak any of the languages and were like religious right maniacs. And not even that they're so crazy. They just know nothings. And they have like that's when you start hearing the shit about they might, what the problem is? Here's why the freedom isn't taking off. We predicted they don't have enough Thomas Jeffersons and George Washingtons. Is that a problem? There's a supply chain shortage of George Washingtons and Thomas Jeffersons. That's probably what it is.
A few in. Yeah. Yeah, look, fuck, dude, these are complicated questions. And I think that's the one reason Putin has been, so the biggest risk to any authoritarian government is civil unrest, right? And
I saw the truckers.
That's why they're so focused on the narratives that take hold within the country. Do you notice,
though? Here's the thing I noticed. That you're right. Like, I think that exactly what you just said. Like, especially here, the narratives were hilarious. Like, one, if you're not violent and protesting, it really is the biggest threat. That is why, based on the freakouts, because
that's Gandhi's whole thing, fucking nonviolent.
And you see so I 100% believe, especially here. I don't know if you know during the George Floyd riots where they were leaving out helpful pallets of protest bricks that nobody knows who left these pallets of bricks. Who the fuck do you think left them? The fucking cops or government agency or whoever. This is how you get funding. Oh, you don't like us? Well, you're going to now. Here's how that story played out. We're mostly only funding police now. That's where most of the funds will be going now. They love this guy, Chris Hedges, I watched, who I like a lot. He's like, that it's not supposed to be cathartic. You're supposed to get something done. And so they want you to pop off because that plays directly into a power structure's hands. Like, if you're not like China where you get to just fucking roll tanks over people, then you have to play that's the like long game you play, like you go, oh yeah, I think something could kick off. Look how bad. That's what we did in the 60s.
It's like Putin saying the Nazis are in Eastern Donbass. It's like, yeah, they're there, but it's just like a tiny amount of people.
Yeah, but that's the ones that are fucking down. See, here's how I found out about the Azov battalion, all that. I watched regular reports from a couple of years ago. So a couple of years ago, the same news agencies that are downplaying this were like, there's a problem with a growing neo-Nazi thing. And they're like, oh, but Zelensky's Jew. Like, if you know Eastern Europe, my friend I have on from Romania, this guy V, he has a YouTube channel. Like, the way they think over there is so different than here. It's like you have, I would make it akin to the Aryan Brotherhood will work with the Mexicans in prison. Like, you got to think of it more like that. It's very, very much a more, you fight with the army you got, not the army you want. That's how somebody from there would put it. And I'm sure that's what the Nazis there say about Zelensky. Well, you fight with the Jews you have. You don't like.
That's funny. Yeah.
Like, that's what it. So the problem is these are what you just said is exactly right. And I'm 100% sick of having it presented to me in Star Wars terms my entire life about every goddamn thing is the light side versus the dark side of the force. I mean, literally that's been used as a thing, Reagan famously, but Bush did his axis of evil. And then whatever, they all have the same thing where like everything, there's a theme here. You're too stupid We need to put this in pro wrestling terms to you. And the danger of that to me is then these narratives, like it becomes like disastrous and be like, oh, how did that happen? I guess the science changed. No, it didn't. You try to cover shit up. You ever read how they admire China, these fucking corporations? We need to get more on a China model. Like that's what we're going to head towards here. Like you see people believe the earth is flat and all that shit. Like I love what's the world coming to? Like we're going into a dark age of anti-science and people. Yeah, that's what happens in feudalism. Peasants believe peasant shit.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I like that.
I don't believe in any communism versus capitalist. Now that's for the chumps. That's like the chump story.
Well, can I ask you a question? Because I'm hearing about a lot of young people in America identifying as communists now.
Yeah, well, they identify as the kind that actually win. Like
well, communists win, but they're not really communists. I mean, communism.
That's right. You don't win. That's why I laugh at it was this late stage capitalism. I'm like, late stage communism is horrible capitalism, like even worse kind of capitalism.
The worst kind of capitalism, yeah.
Yeah, like I don't care about these like labels of basically I'm sick of the prepackaged solution that it's just a repeating pattern. Like we're going to fix Iraq. We're going to get those bad Ba'ath people out of there. And we're going to get, so then these people fall back on, well, it was complex. No, you oversimplified it, dickhead. You didn't treat it like complex. And now I'm supposed to treat it like complex. Now that you fucked up, now I'm supposed to suddenly be nuanced when you were selling me, this is Darth Vader and shit. There's repeats over and over.
I mean, there's a really good podcast that Gary Kasparov, and he's a really, really incisive voice on Putin and has been since Putin's been in power. And he's basically saying that, like, people are saying, oh, this is about EU aggression. He was like, the EU is like the most toothless organization on the planet. The idea that Putin is threatened by the EU.
What does he mean by toothless? They don't like. Here's
they have
what
no
they do.
power. They have no ability to do anything.
It's not there for that. It's just like our government. No. People go to the government.
It's not a country's government.
It's a trade. It's the trade. It's the trade. It's like everything else.
All they really have the power to do is coordinate buying gas. They are totally fucking powerless.
How do they do austerity to the fucking? They have the power to make certain things. That whole Brexit thing at the time was a bunch of people and this was the argument. Again, I don't give a shit whether they Brexit or not, but I keep seeing the repeating thing. If it comes down to, if you're like a world traveler, like I'm going to say elite in the sense of people feel of themselves like a global citizen.
Yeah. And
that's the fun. Like, come on, we're trying to break that. And all these people that are left out of the fruits of that, which are most of the people, they're constantly like, you need to compete with these other people. You suck. You're an idiot. Just do what we tell you. This is overwhelming message, and it's becoming ridiculous. Like it's getting to a ridiculous point where it's like I said, one hand complaining we're in a dark age, and then you want to keep it that way because you don't want to give out information, and then you want to pass little secret algorithms, and that's what we have. We have. You see Elon Musk by Twitter, and they all freaked out. And
yeah, that's right.
On Jimmy's show, we covered the Washington Post of all places. This could be a terrible blow to democracy if he gets his free speech. Like, aren't you owned by a fucking billionaire? But they're all freaked out because that's a power thing. Like we kind of have a good lockdown on what you can say on Twitter now, and it would be a disaster if other people were allowed to use it. And then fucking MBS, that Saudi Arabia guy, weighs in because he owns a big chunk of Twitter, and he didn't want it being bought. And I'm like, why is that? Do they have Twitter in Saudi Arabia?
Interesting. Twitter's massive in Saudi Arabia.
So that's why, because part of the clamping down secretly on free speech, that's why. Is I'm sure over there, there ain't no rainbow flags on the Twitter over there. And Twitter quietly puts that down while they're all whatever.
As a genuine question, is that true? Do you know that's true? Or you just
that Saudi Arabia doesn't allow that shit?
Yeah.
I'd
be curious to look that up. I mean, it makes sense to me, but I
didn't look it up. I'm going to say, here's why I'm pausing, because no, I didn't look it up, but that has to be true. How would Saudi Arabia allow Twitter? Why would they allow Twitter if?
Well, the reason they allowed Twitter is, did you ever see that documentary, The Dissident?
No.
Oh my God, dude, you got to check it out. You would absolutely love it. It's from the guy that made Icarus. Icarus is the Netflix documentary which led to the Russians being banned from the Olympics. The Dissident is about Jamal Khashoggi, the
the guy that they hacked up, and right.
It's all about that. You got to check it out. It's just fascinating documentary.
So they allowed Twitter because of that?
No, the insight that came out of that is that they are very effective at using they have farms of government workers sculpting narratives on Twitter.
Yeah. What do you think we got? What do you think?
Well, I'm not saying they're unique.
No, I know.
But because they have such an effective strategy for controlling how Twitter is, what trends.
They tracked them with it?
No, but they used it to to control narratives in the Arab world.
Is that amazing that this was promised as a thing where we're all going to have whatever is and you could take down, but now it's a valuable tool of like whatever power structure.
Yeah, well, that was the I think in the Social Dilemma, there was that key like iconic quote where the guy was like, we thought we were doing this great thing that could bring power to the people, and we didn't understand the other side of that coin when the powerful people learned how to use this as a sort of weaponized.
Yeah, right. And they also didn't understand they don't want people to have power. They have absolute contempt for regular people. So now if you got to read this Robert Reich. This article is unbelievable that he wrote about the danger of Elon Musk. And they all can't just openly say it can't be free speech, but they basically have to do one of those freedom is slavery arguments that it's just unbelievable. I'm like, do you hear what you're saying? Like, and so it's very obvious. So that guy, but I'm sure, dude, it's got to be that Twitter, if it's allowed in Saudi Arabia, if it's even allowed there, that means like every other corporation that does foreign business in these countries, they have to play by those rules. And because they don't have to have one standard for everyone, how you were saying at the outset about equal treatment, that's what's so scary about, like, oh, do you want the state to control things? No, I also don't want a corporation the size of a state to not only control me, but get to do arbitrary rules they don't even tell me about, which is how it is now. They don't have to tell you why they do anything. You never hear about Saudi Arabia. That's one that's always like quiet. And, China you do hear about because there's enough of an interest where people are like mad, but still at the top levels, like Mitch McConnell has a Chinese wife who's plugged into the government of China. He's a Republican.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Oh man.
This is all that's why it's like for suckers to be Republican or Democrat loyally. Like you're a chump. Like, do you think Hulk Hogan really and the Iron Sheik really settled something in the ring? Like, is that what you think?
I thought they did, just for the record. I'm just learning about this now.
They wanted to destroy the Iron Sheik's knees are basically Baghdad.
That's great.
They ravaged his knees. So I can't, as soon as I see people get emotional about it, like, I'm like, you can't pretend you're like this, like that Ronnie Chang. That actually made me angry. And I really think Ronnie Chang's funny, but that arrogant. So there's some real basic thing with all this stuff where there's an arrogant, like, kind of class connected to these things. And they're like, we can't tell you certain things. And we have to tell you, there's always these, they call it nudges here. That's like the new buzzword of like, just giving people a nudge with like authoritarian things. And they're all fine with it. It don't matter who's in power. They all have.
Yeah, but man, I mean, to play devil's advocate to that position, I would say a couple of things. First of all, there's plenty of justifiable positions that people have that they're upset about. And to just name a few, Muhammad's dad died from COVID. I have three friends, Muhammad Magdi, the Egyptian comedian in Shanghai.
Oh, no shit.
His dad died in Egypt. It was pretty horrific. And
what do they have in Egypt for vaccine? Do they have it? The vaccine?
I think they have just a little bit of salt. They just throw over their shoulder, I think they pray. I think that's what they do.
Did he get the initial wave or like Delta? It wasn't Omicron, probably.
It was Delta, I think, from memory. It wasn't Omicron. And I know 3 different comics whose dads have died.
Oh, COVID. Dude, a bunch of people. I know few people who died. Jeff the keyboard player at the store. Yeah.
So if one of those guys turns around and has an emotive speech about vaccines, there's like, this is real life going on, in the midst of these.
I don't care about that. That's the thing that you would do.
I'm just saying that, like, there's that side to it, and maybe it's not even that. Maybe that's
very real, and that's what is used by people who, and this is just by virtue of being in power. There's a degree of being a psychopath that is built into it, because you've got to take a bunch of people and treat them like a block. Okay. And not give a shit about them on an individual, or how would you even do any of the jobs? So there's a degree built in. You got to be like that. And every society has a thing where, like, of human sacrifice, like, it still exists. Where, like, ancient times, how many people are thrown into the volcano to keep the fucking gods happy, to keep this going? And then a society picks who's the group that it's okay to not give a shit about now. And then what happens is, it's not just you don't give a shit about them. Then when it's convenient, you can pin all the fucking hatreds and angers you have about everything else onto this group. And then I know phony immediately, because they're not arguing against this fucking thing. They're arguing, which a lot of leftists, by the way. I thought I hated all fucking leftists, by the way, for the Jimmy show. If you're just free speech, then I'll hear you out, number one. If you're not, I can't. Like, it's already like rotten from the core if you don't think free speech is a thing. But when they have to do the, basically, it's, if we do it, it's not bad. That's the one rule. And here especially, it's all tied together with, like, the way it's like market, and like, you're a brand. Like, I remember when I started comedy, they'd be like, what's your brand? They would ask you what your brand was.
Hilarious.
Like, I got to think about my fucking brand. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I got into this to not have
a logo. Yeah.
Now, I'm an idiot who doesn't understand business, by the way. That's why I didn't. But then it shifted. By the time I met you, it was, you are a brand. Well, he's a brand. I'm like, I don't even, like, a cow gets to still be a cow even after you brand it.
Hilarious.
No, I'm not even the cow. And
that's so funny.
So, and at the same time, that's all this identity shit here, or made in the Western world. And that people can't react worse to that. It's bizarre that it gets pushed so much, because you would think free market, it's not popular. Then you realize now the wealth disparity, I'm saying as a person who's not into commie shit, the wealth disparity is so big. And I found this out from all the jobs I've been doing, working in podcasts, and like, they don't even have to make a profit. Capitalism doesn't enter into it. It's all venture capital, almost everything here. So like Lewis's channel I'm on, Gas Digital. My friend out here, Alex, has a podcast channel. And I was like, who's like your competition of that? And he goes, well, just Lewis on the other coast. Everybody else is investment money. Everybody else from investment money. So even in tech now, sometimes these companies accidentally make money, and then they have to cook the books to look like you didn't, so they don't miss out on another round of investing. So you always hear about these projects like Quibi, these stupid fucking things. You're like, this isn't going to work. And they don't work. It's because these people have so much extra money at this point that they can promote shit. So half of the shit that sucks here is trickle down Bill Gates shit from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, because they have been paying the press to focus their efforts on certain things. And it's not even so diabolical, like, and then we're going to make the kids gay. And what happens is you hire consultants, the worst fucking humans on the planet, consultants. And these motherfuckers have to keep making their usefulness, just like some bureaucrat class or China. Like, you have to fill out a form of what jokes you're planning to tell. Ridiculous shit. These people, so we do a little more Wild West. We don't have the culture ministry, right? We just have freelance roaming militias that try to get something going. And like, I kind of respected about China when I was there was like, there was a definite, like, it's not like Twitter, you don't even know what you did. They don't have to tell you the rules. They're like, hey, don't say shit about China while you're here. I'm like, that's a very clear rule.
Yeah, but I think it's changed a bit. I mean, it's changed a lot ever since you were there. And whereas at the time, I think there was some pretty clear lines about what was okay and what isn't. Now it's like, those lines don't exist anymore.
Well, that thing you said, I think about what you just said about passing the law so that, and maybe we'll enforce it at a time of our choosing.
Yeah.
That's people try to establish that here in every possible way. And the biggest worms here, people I like have said they're not worm, but this is such a wormy argument that someone's parroting at me that makes me fucking sick. It's a private company. They could do what they want. So let me understand. You're arguing like, no, it's okay. We can get away with this censorship. Not that it's bad. And also you're on the side of a corporation that there's no constitution in it for you. You'd like that kind of power, and you think that can't be turned on you in a heartbeat. And then when it is, they're always shocked. So go against Saudi Arabia as a good liberal. Watch how quick your shit gets fucked with.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to I think one of the important problems in talking about any of this stuff, and it might be kind of the issue you have with the way Ronnie talked about it, is that it's just so important to have a level of humility and understand that you can be wrong or that you don't know. It's
not if you want a seat at the table. It's not. That's the sickening thing is that's now the flying your flag. I mean, people call it virtue signal, but you're flying the flag of who you're with. And that's how but I know so many of these people, the way they think of it is a girl's lunch table. So here's a good example. We did a story about the guy who started the Amazon union, Chris Smalls, this guy who, his story is unbelievable. He's this black guy that when COVID first started, they're in the Pacific Northwest and a lot of Asian traffic in and out. So it directly got there first from China in America. And so people were getting sick with it. And he basically was like a great employee is what he was. And he was, and he thought it was there and they ended up firing him and all this crazy shit when they should have been like, oh, you're a valued employee. So I saw his story first on something. And every time I'd see this guy, there was none of this bullshit added on of anything else other than this thing about how they treat their workers there. Didn't bring in any other he's just on point. And it just sounded like a guy who works there who's trying to genuinely fix a thing. Then their union, because it's very anti-union. I'm not even like unions are the greatest. Basically, one forms because you suck. If you suck enough, a union has to form. It's probably preferable. You don't need to get to that.
Well, that's how everyone gets motivated to get behind it, which is what needs to happen, right?
So watch how fast. Now this guy, Chris Smalls, he went on Tucker Carlson. He went on all these news channels to talk about, because they won. It's scary. Starbucks is freaking out about a union forming.
You're talking about Amazon getting their union.
And they're trying to kill it. Amazon's trying to kill it. They have an internal like China app, like a communication app. I don't know who would be on that at work, but you're not let the words bathroom and union you can't use. That's very China of them.
Have you ever seen I think it's called The American Factory? Have you seen that documentary on Netflix?
With the Chinese, it was like the insourcing from the candidate kind of. I think I did see it. And they're thanking the Chinese boss, these workers. They're like, I just want to thank you. And he's just standing there. Look, I think that's what it was. Obama.
Yeah. It's basically a rich Chinese investor buys like a car factory in Detroit or something. And it was just, I felt like it was away from the politics of it all. It was like I'm always curious in like real interactions between the East and West and how you start to, sorry, someone coming in here. I probably have to jump off pretty soon.
Oh yeah, we were on for a bit. Wait, let me just tell you about Chris Smalls before I forget. So
you do it.
He and Tucker Carlson. So Tucker Carlson is not a pro-union guy. AOC basically, she's such a piece of shit. Like she ditched this group during their march. In fact, none of these supposedly progressive people supported them in any way because they're all corporate owned. And she went to the Met Gala with her tax the rich dress, that made the news. And
I don't know. I don't really follow that kind of stuff, but
this guy made it not. So Tucker's like, I mean, it's sad. He goes, well, it's not. They all do. He goes, they all do. We don't have any will to it. We just need to get this done. The dude just stayed on point the whole time. So what happens? Watched Media Matters, which is like a Clinton fucking some scumbag. We got all these like they basically monitor political adversary media to be. So this guy tweets at the guy from Media Matters. He goes, "This isn't it." And everybody's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like they just won the thing because he went on Tucker Carlson. And the guy's point was, yeah, that's important or whatever. But Tucker Carlson's a bigot who spews hate every night. And so this helps Tucker Carlson. So that's why you should this is how they think. It does. This guy who's just trying to get some shit for these employees who are treated like sub-robot conditions. That doesn't matter. You're a fucking pawn. Don't you understand? You're going to be used by us or by them. Don't you want to be used by the lesser of two evil sides of history?
Well, it comes back to your if you don't have the army you want, you use the army you have, right?
Yeah, whether they want it or not.
That's the only platform he can really get. I mean, Tucker Carlson, I think is horrific, but
he gets more viewers than, in fact, all these viewers from CNN watch him now this is what's hilarious. Like if you look at the actual ratings. So anyway, this guy was so on point with it. And there's another thing at Plage is they all want to kill unions, Democrats and Republicans alike here. Like all their funding, that's why they have offices in DC, all these companies, is to advocate, and then their internal memos leak. And you're like, what the fuck? And I certainly didn't have any idea how crazy it is. Like, I think of capitalism like I just get to fucking work and make a thing that I can have. That's how the average moron thinks about it, which is what I am. I didn't know capitalism was invented by Marx. By the way, the term, it's like an insult Marx came up with for a free market, which is weird that we use it to this day. Like, but I don't have any feelings about it like it's sacred. And I just want, like, don't forget any of these labels. Just like treat these people fairly. I don't even care that it's a union or not. Like, just, you can't like have people peeing in bottles or have ambulances. You hear they had ambulances outside in one of their southern shipping places because it was cheaper to have an ambulances outside all day for heat stroke than to run the air conditioning. I mean, it sounds
that's
insane.
wild. Yeah. But you know what? I was trying to kind of get to this before, and it's that I think that, there's that old, I think from Churchill, the quote, like, democracy is the worst form of government, but for all the rest, right? And it's like, what is it about democracy that is a strength compared to the others? And it's this,
having it.
Well, it's this idea that the people can have influence over, if not
that's a great
decisions, but the people that make the decisions, even if it's over a longer time frame. But I think there's another aspect which I think might even be more important, which is transparency.
Yes.
And it's like, yes, you can say it's that Twitter is not allowed to make unilateral decisions and all that sort of stuff, but ultimately problems like that will arise. But with transparency, there is blowback, and the blowback is not inconsequential.
Yeah,
like
right.
Facebook fucked up a lot, and it's had its head fucking bashed in a lot, and maybe it's still too powerful, and maybe that's not enough, but there is a mechanism there.
Well, what's too powerful is people are allowed to talk to each other. That's what's too powerful. Is in this article by Rob Regas. Then there will be the misinformation poisoning the minds. Am I 5 years old in church? Don't listen to heavy metal. It poisons the mind. I'm an adult. If someone tells me the earth is flat and it's not flat, don't worry. I'll know when I read it.
Yeah, man, but you're missing something deeper in it. And there's something addictive about conspiracies. And if you look at the way people fall down the rabbit holes on like,
I was in a doomsday cult. Let me tell you what it is. Here's how we sold our bullshit. Because doesn't it seem like the world's about to end? Yeah. Would you like to know there's a hope for the future? That's the whole pitch. Now,
sure.
Jehovah's Witnesses more than ever now. There's more than ever because it's probably a great time to sell that God's going to wipe this out. Okay.
Yeah.
So, like I'm saying, once you have feudalism, where the thing you just said, having influence, the people, the whole basic power. That's why people talk about power so much. Like, well, you need to know about your power.
No, but I meant Facebook having too much power, not the people.
Well, what he does is bribe them and then censor shit. They tell him, here's how he plays ball. The Democrat said, you need to tamp down on this because we're losing then they put out a bunch of such as Russiagate. I don't know if you remember, we had this whole thing about Putin and Trump. And it went nowhere.
I remember that. Yeah.
It went fucking nowhere. And to this day, these fucking assholes will talk about QAnon. You motherfuckers still, I don't mean you. These people still believe, they're like, no, but they did some kind of clue. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? It went nowhere. And because if you're watching the thing, like, I'll watch everybody's shit to get a clear picture. But I know a bunch of my friends here, purely watch like a CNN or MSNBC. There's very few, like, you have to go somewhere else for where people only watch Fox News, right? And but I can't believe people that I think of as smart do this. That's the shocking. Their intelligence has nothing to do with anything.
No, but I agree with that. I think but that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that like there's something in the way that disinformation gets into people's heads that it's like anyone of any level of success can have a meth addiction. Mm-hmm. And anyone,
that's exactly right. Yeah.
Any level of intelligence or analytical thinking can get sucked in by, you know, a rabbit hole of conspiratorial.
But it's not. That's because it's the word of God convicts your heart and not your head. What's happening is,
sure. I mean, that's I agree with that.
I would have never left Jehovah's Witnesses if you told me all about the various obvious holes in the story that I had. I would have probably stiffened up. In fact, if you tried to say you can't spread your Jehovah's Witness, which happens in China, by the way, you can't spread this disinformation, because technically, if you want, once you make this disinformation category, you can start coming after all kinds of shit, and they're more and more they do, and nobody cares till they notice it finally. But I watch it from like video games all the way to like now everything. They like to Joe. I thought somebody discovered oil inside of Joe Rogan with the level of government attacking him. But the guy's a podcast. He's not competing with the news. You're not you, but they're not asking the question, why do people trust a fucking jerk off podcaster more than me at the news? Well, because they can hear. Even a stupid person can hear when they're being lied to or condescended to, and they're more condescending than ever. So if people are worried, like I left Jehovah's Witnesses, not because someone fucking told me information or whatever. The shit failed on its own for me. When it lets you down, that's when you get out of it. So that's how disillusioned people that used to hate Tucker Carlson watch him that are fucking Democrats. People are being let down. So that's why you can't have the air, like all that rah-rah bullshit you can have when I don't know so much of your dirty fucking laundry. Blissfully, a state that I yearn to be in again. When I grew up in the original Matrix, and now I live in Matrix Resurrections, which I don't know if like their kids took over.
Not as good a movie, let's be honest.
It's just a moron can see through them now. And we're all, it feels like when I go to people have kids' house and they're like, they make you be part of their Santa lie. They're like the kids there and like, because if he's good, Santa will come, right, Jason, to let you know you got to be in on the Santa thing with me. I'm like, oh, all right, I guess I'll do your propaganda about Santa.
That's hilarious.
That's what they do with everything else. So all the things about COVID, that's why it wasn't about anything to do with science. It was, all the stupid people in January 6th, right? And we can't take a chance. Just like the war on terror, 9/11 changed everything, right? And that's why we got to, and we know where it all ends up at best, taking your fucking shoes off at the airport at best. The new versions of that, which will be masks. So you'll be uncovering your feet and covering. I got to make a shoe mask that you can convert.
I got to figure out how to hide my bomb in the face mask. That's the secret to getting terrorism.
Do you know that guy that they caught, by the way? Because it doesn't do anything taking his shoes off. He had visible fuses in these obvious bomb shoes. Just nobody looked at his feet. I guess because he probably had a robe on. So
he had like a stick of TNT sticking out the side of it.
Yeah, it was like that. If anybody just saw like, hey, what kind of shoes are those?
It's like one of those like black bowling ball bombs from Looney Tunes. He
had Super Mario bomb shoes on.
Yeah.
And then the Parkland shooting, the famous one where we need to do something about guns. Like the nobody thought it would happen. Well, if you look into most of these stories, not only did they think it would happen, everybody knew the guy that was going to pop off. They reported to the police, to the FBI. You know what the FBI was doing while this shit was going on? And the same with Boston Marathon. There's at least, I've watched Chris Morris talk about it. He made a movie about it. There's at least 300 people that they rounded up. This is what FBI's done forever. These fake entrapment things that I wasn't aware of this. What you might think entrapment is, their definition's real. It's a real small one for them because they just have to prove you did something that, quote, is in your nature. So it worked on mafia.
Oh, dude, that's some Minority Report level shit.
When I heard it, I was like, that can't be what's written down, can it? But of course it is. I didn't pay attention. Who's paying attention unless that's their job? And they're going to make, so they make it so I remember at the time, like 2010 or so, I looked up something like what's the most terrorism, right? Because this is when Islamophobia was the hot thing on the street. But if you look it up, the most common form of terrorism, according to the government reports, was eco-terrorism. I'm like, eco-terrorism? What is it, like 12 monkeys?
Like,
how often? I
was going to say like the Muslim dolphins or something.
Yeah. Are there Muslim dolphins? It's mostly property crime, which they classified as terrorism, attacking corporations which I don't think you should do, but they made it terrorism. A guy, he just got in 2015, he finally got acquitted, but basically the FBI and this is again outsourcing. They get a low life character to get the person to find these people that are terrorists. And what happens is they end up planning out the entire crime for the person. And they get these mental defectives that wouldn't do shit unless. So this guy is an eco terrorist that eventually got acquitted, but this woman basically flirted with him. He was shy around girls, and she basically lured him with like
a honeypot situation.
Yeah, but I don't think the FBI said to do it. I think they're paying these unscrupulous people who then do it. So she goes, "You should blow up the damn." I'm shortening it, and so then they withheld all this. The FBI, they get funding when they get these, and they get with terrorists. There was these guys in Florida, these goofy black like sub Nation of Islam cult that they were going to ride horses into Chicago with swords or some terror. A shady guy got caught, some fucking Arab fucking international criminal guy gets caught, and they go, "You need to find these terrorists for us." So he goes in and he sets them up, and then they get more funding. There's like 300 people that were not real terrorists. Same with the eco-terrorist kid. And now,
yikes.
Okay, so all the right wingers, and I wasn't right wing, but I was like, oh yeah, well, Muslims are blowing shit up now, so they got to look into it. I didn't know about any of this. While they were doing these phony ones, the Boston Marathon happened, another one where people reported to the FBI ahead of time because about getting funding. Right? Oh, dude, I got to go too. Shit. We would talk. Dude, I was good to talk to you, man. I haven't seen you in a long time, so I'm happy.
It's fucking great to see you, man. I really, it's really good to have a chat.
What do you got to promote, by the way, just so before I forget?
Nothing, man. I'm nothing. Just check me out on social media at Andy Curtin on everything. That's all I got.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. That was a great trip. I'm glad I got to go before it got like weird.
I mean, it'll never happen again. That whole thing is done now, and it'll never happen again.
Wow, that's wild, dude. It's really crazy to think about, because I felt it was like a really like opportunity to just like see like a lot of shit. Until you go someplace you don't.
It was like. It reminds me of like when people go to the Great Barrier Reef. They have these glass bottom boats. It's like you can get to see inside what's going on.
Yeah, right.
It's a really interesting perspective across what's really happening.
Well, you could put yourself in like you told me about that thing where like you make these deals and you have to argue with people because it's not the same kind of what you might think it would be here comparatively.
Yeah,
and it's like it's like nothing personal. It's just how this shit works. So you have
that's the nature of interaction over there.
Yeah, and it's good to be like, I like being like one of the few of a kind of person somewhere to see it's just because it was almost like a funhouse mirror of shit where I totally recognized it and then shit I didn't recognize,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that's a great description of it.
All right, let's talk again soon, man. I was great talking to you. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, dude. Take care. I'll speak to you soon.
All right, later, Andy.
Because I can't get right. Because I can't get right. Yeah, you're listening to Can't Get